Hey everyone, I am getting ready to do a little weeding in the yard, and I thought maybe in case any of you are in the ADHD realm of things, like I am, and appreciate body doubling, that maybe you would want to come weed with me. So, if you have a space in your yard that needs a little bit of attention, and you just haven't gotten around to it and need someone to come with you or hold you to task, you are welcome to join me. I am going to be working on what we kind of fondly call the pollinator bed of our garden in our yard. It's a side bed, has lots of Monarda. There have been some other seed packets of things that have been sprinkled in here over the years, honestly. Um, I don't know, a little bit of this and that. Sometimes we find some non native things. Sometimes those come out. Some of these taller stems now, I'm going to kind of be breaking off, taking out, just getting things ready for summer. And obviously, the new growth is already coming in. Um, So yeah, just gonna kind of work on some of this. Tools that I may or may not be using, but I always bring with me in case you're interested. I've always got my hori knife. It's one of my favorites. It's got the nice blade edge on it and serrated edge for cutting things like vines, grasses. It's great for that. So usually got that nearby. And then the Felco pruners. I have the uh, one with the rotating handle, helps reduce fatigue. These are generally the two garden tools that I always have on hand. Highly recommend. Also, Atlas nitrile gloves are some of my favorites. See, I have many pairs. I always wear out the right ones, so usually I end up with a ton of left hand and one or two right hands. So I buy those in multi packs from Amazon. Um, it's not too bad a deal that way. So I'm gonna get started. And honestly, I was a little bit disappointed. I had good, bad news when I came out here today, that I actually don't have as many weeds as I thought I did. Full disclaimer, I came out and thought that I did this. Well, I did do this previously, and turns out that the microphone that I was using came unplugged from my phone when I dropped it. And the phone holder thing that this is connected to right now, I forgot to get that charged up. So it was like a weird angle anyway. So, weird angle, no one could hear me. So that was a trial run, I guess. So mostly what I'm seeing in here right now is wood sorrel, stuff that kind of looks um, like clover. I think it's a little more. I think it's one that's edible. Um, I'm honestly not a big forage person because I don't always trust my ID enough. That's one of those things I hope to get better at still. But the great thing about horticulture is that there are so many things to learn. And so, for those of us who are a little more ADHD inclined and always looking for a challenge and something new, horticulture has kept me engaged. Let's see. All right, some more of that. My Clitoria Mariana is coming back up. That's exciting. Doesn't look like much right now. I don't know if I can do this without messing this up. You can see all the Monarda coming in. I think this is a Didyma cultivar. I got it a long time ago before I really knew anything about plants, and it's obviously taken off. There's the Clitoria Mariana in there. It's got kind of like the pea looking plant. This kind of like lower growth with all the leaf coverage and everything, it's definitely one of those places where sometimes you'll get surprised by like a box turtle, especially a baby box turtle. So it's so important to have areas where you do kind of like let there be some stuff on the ground, and lower growing plants. And we've got different levels of things in here. I'm trying to see if there's even any more between the Monarda and the leaves. I'm honestly not seeing a ton of weeds right here, except for just right along this edge where the sorrel-y kind of stuff is. And I hope I'm IDing that one right. We've also had like a booming crop of the Carolina wild geranium this year, which some people do like to use that as kind of a ground cover. Certainly very tolerant, and if you really get it filled in well, I guess it can look nice. But I usually kind of treat that one as a weed in my beds where I don't want it. But it has been popping up everywhere this year. Okay, I really don't see a whole lot more here. I'm going to get in here. And I do have a lot of these taller stems from last year. I'm just going to break them down back to like a few inches. There is so much advice out there. Everyone will tell you something different about what to do with your stems. I certainly don't cut anything back in the fall or the winter, but there's things saying like, oh, leave them up for like never cut them back, or leave them and leave part of them in place. I think the most recent I heard was that you can go ahead and take them out because a lot of times they're going to go into the ends of them anyway after they've been broken, or like normally in the wild they would be browsed on, and so they would kind of be cut back or they would get knocked back just by wildlife coming through, and so that is kind of a natural process, cutting them back, and that then later the native bees will come and nest in those stems. At least that's my current understanding of the current science. So I will not go so far as to say that I am an expert in any of these things, because I am not an entomologist. I am not a botanist. I am a certified horticulturist. I can identify a lot of plants. I cannot identify all of them. Also got some Rudbeckia hirta in here that's been seeding around. Leave that alone. I apologize. I mostly use scientific names of things. I did not really grow up knowing plants that well. Not that my parents weren't into plants, but it wasn't really a thing where we knew anything other than like Japanese maple that would get planted. Like we always lived in new houses, and so they would put in like the one tree out in the yard, which is usually a Bradford pear. Sometimes like the really fancy homeowners would go and replace it or buy the Japanese maple. Sometimes you'd get a cherry. That was real fancy. And otherwise, I remember my parents growing strawberries. And then one year I wanted to grow strawberries on the side of the house. But otherwise, like, just never really big into plants. And so when I learned plants, I learned them by scientific name because that's what I had to know for my tests. And so I am terrible with common names. People get frustrated with me at the nursery because they're like, well, it's this. And I'm like, well, I'll go and Google it. And they think that I should absolutely know what they're talking about because it's some common thing. And I'm sure it is, but 20 different plants have that same common name. And I honestly don't know which one you're talking about. So, not a fan of common names. Don't really see a lot of reason to put much effort into learning those. Big stuff. Trying to get things ready. We've got Lynnhaven River Now coming out here in June for a garden tour. So kind of thinking about what else I'm going to bring in. Holy, this is some phlox, paniculata, garden phlox that I planted in here a couple years ago. This has really filled out. That's amazing. I love this plant. It's going to be gorgeous this summer. So that's exciting to think about. Right now I've got, if you can see the yellow over there, we've got some lance leaf coreopsis lanceolata. And that is filling in. See here, I've got, this is Virginia creeper. Love Virginia creeper, I really do. I let a lot of it go, especially in the back area as a ground cover. But that does mean sometimes keeping it back a bit over here because I don't want it to smother my other pollinator plants. And so it's all about, finding that balance. Sorry, Monarda. Of, letting things go or versus keeping it manicured, and that balance between the two for yourself and for wildlife. You know what else? We have a lot of bunnies right now, and something even like this is so dense that I could see them hiding in here too. I don't see any right now. But we have all these azaleas over here. Not my favorite, not native azaleas. But we kept them because when we moved into this house, it was one of the only plants we had here. Like pine trees and oaks in the back, azaleas along the side and along the house, foundation plantings, azaleas, camellias. But they do, as we're getting other stuff in, they've provided at least that evergreen element for winter cover for wildlife. And so we've kind of let them stay in place for that because we do have a lot of things like our cardinals that like to nest in there. They like to nest in the shrubs. This was a pokeweed from last year. We do always let a few pokeweed go. Let's see, some Actaeae. I think, or like snake root, I think is the common name for that one. And here, this is vervain, but I've had the invasive vervain come in. I'm gonna have to double check whether this is that one. I know when they're blooming for sure, but I'm gonna have to come back and check whether that's the invasive one. Probably not. The native one is very difficult to get rid of once you got it. See, I've got a bunch of, here's the new pokeweed coming in. We've got obedient plant, One always says that one's kind of silly. It's not actually obedient. Kind of spreads like crazy. And these are all fireworks Solidago, rough Solidago rugosa fireworks cultivar from last year. The new ones are really coming in, and that'll be a nice late summer bloom. In coastal Virginia, Solidago is the top non-woody host plant for Lepidoptera, or our moths and butterflies. So if you don't have some of that, make sure you add some to your garden. Nice bouquet of Solidago. So in typical ADHD way, I had a weed bucket. I like to keep like the 15-gallon containers to use as a weed bucket. And I think I left it over there somewhere. So now I have a pile of stuff here that my husband's going to be really excited about. I think he just got my last piles picked up so he could mow the grass this past weekend. So I had to keep him busy. All right, get some of these, some more of these out of here so that new green growth really shines. Otherwise, I think it's because it's been so dry in coastal Virginia right now. This area really is not that weedy. We're supposed to get some rain in the next 24 hours, like half an inch, which is going to be like the most rain we've gotten this spring. So I'm guessing there's going to be an explosion of weeds when that happens. It's going to be real unfortunate because there is still some open space in here. But hopefully it will also give stuff a boost to get growing and filling out a little more too, which will help keep the weed pressure down. But I've definitely got some plugs out at the nursery that I may bring home and stick in here, fill some more things out a bit. So I got to think about what I want those to be. I think this bed always needs a little more in early spring. Summer is usually kind of its time. And then it's also got some asters and goldenrod for late summer, fall. So I think it's more of that early time when there's not a lot happening here. So I'm maybe going to think about that when I'm putting in some more plants. All right. I just don't see a whole lot. Got a little bit of that Carolina geranium. If you're not sure what that is, it looks like all the geraniums have kind of a similar foliage to them. It's got that, and then these itty bitty little flowers, not showy. And then I say our native geranium, but the native geranium that I actually plant, the geranium maculatum, has got a much larger foliage on it. You can see kind of similar seed heads and flowers as the other one, but much larger, showier. All right, so we're back over here. I got some more of that geranium. I've got some little salvias coming in, not native. I'm going to let them stay though. So that's one that the pollinators do like. Take out some more of this geranium. All these little metal sculpture guys get bent. Straighten them back out. This one is a little fork hummingbird. Got some big dragonflies too. They're always kind of fun amidst the pollinator plants in the summer. Geranium, geranium. Oh, forget what this one is called. Huge pain. I'm sure I'll remember as soon as I'm done here. But they have like a zillion babies. They look kind of like a little mimosa. This stuff grows like crazy. I haven't actually seen quite as much of it. I've been going after it since we moved in. But it used to just fill these beds. That is the great thing though, like if you do try and kind of keep up with the weeding, is that, you know, over time, generally, you're going to start to see less of some of those things. After you've been going after them for a little while, it can definitely take time and it can seem like a lost cause. We have fought in this yard and are still fighting. English ivy, vinca, those are the main two. I'm guessing at some point they started in this yard. We've been here now for 12 years. And we had pretty much eradicated it from this yard by year 2. And just by going around like in the winter and just pulling and pulling. I mean, we had bags and bags and bags at the curb. It was pretty awful, of the English ivy. But we got it out and we've been replacing it with native understory stuff and letting some of the native stuff come back in. But periodically, because now it's in all the surrounding yards, it will come back in. And so it's just a matter of periodically going around and pulling out little pieces, or the birds will eat the berries and poop them in. Oh, Nandina is the other one. So gotten the Nandina out, but it seeds back in from right over here. I don't know if my liatrice came back. Let's see it. Well, that's sad. Hopefully it's seeded somewhere. All right. Whoop. A little wasp looking for some caterpillar lunch. Gaillardia. This whole area over here is Solidago, and I think it is the Canadensis, and it is super aggressive. Again, planted before I really knew enough about plants, and I think it was labeled as something different. It took a little while to really get going, but now I'm often doing this, pulling it out, just trying to keep it restrained a bit to that area. So just periodically come in and take it back with its root. And keep it from taking over the entire bed. But at some point, that is one that we may end up trying to completely take out and replacing. So, yeah, we'll do a little bit of editing with those. Knock them back some more. They do look gorgeous in the fall, especially with all the asters. And I've also got some swamp sunflowers back here that pop up. So it is very pretty, but I don't want an entire bed of it. And that's where, even with the native plants, you have to know how aggressive the different plants that you're planting are, and have an understanding of what it is that you want. And so whatever that end goal is that you have, it may take some work, some planting, some moving things around, to get it there. And you want to be intentional and make it as little work as possible. But plants are going to shift, they're going to move, they're going to spread. Sometimes it's going to be something you like. Some of my favorite things in my yard are things that just happened, and sometimes it's going to be something that you don't like as much. And so catching things before your entire yard is common milkweed or goldenrod, which again, amazing plants, make a wonderful meadow, but a lot tougher to keep in your yard if you want to do anything else. So knowing what plants you have, where you want them to be, it's where it does require some upkeep and editing over time to help keep that image that you have in your head. This is tricky. I think I've got another phlox species in here. The foliage looks a little similar to the solidago, but it stays lower. And actually, this might be my light trees with a little ladybug. I always mean to look up. This is a 7-spotted one. I don't know if it's good or bad. I know the ones with tons and tons of spots are the Asian ones. All right. Geranium, more solidago. I don't know if I've said the common name for solidago, goldenrod. There are a lot of different solidagos, some more aggressive than others. This is a more aggressive one. All right. I think that's probably all I've got time for today. I've got to get back to work, but I've got a pretty solid pile of weeds and not weeds, but not things that I want to keep in my bed. And I hope that you have gotten some weeding done too. And I maybe will see you again. Thanks.